Welcome, guys, to this new episode from our Express course. In today's lesson, we are going to cover how to configure our local and remote repository. When I talk about repository, I also have to mention about the Git tool. Git, it's a pretty widespread tool used in the programming world and more, and it's about a version control system that allows two programmers maybe handle changes and control versions of their applications. At the beginning, maybe this not make sense at all, but it's also important with the following example. For example, I'm going to use Git to create different branches depending on different episodes of the course, or maybe different steps, because we are going to cover a lot of different. I currently not think about that we are going to create a lot of different episodes, so I will try to create branches depending on maybe biggest changes. I don't know. For example, if we want to include a maybe an authentication module, I have to create a new branch just to encapsulate that specific portion of code that allows you guys to get that specific version without extra code that maybe in your in the moment that you are learning in the course is not important at all. And also, maybe not for educational purpose, Git allows, for example, I don't know, maybe in the future I'm going to change this. But what happens if I need to rewind or go back to a specific part of my code? For example, the most basic one I can give you just right now is, I don't know, what happened if I want to add exclamation mark at the end of the hello world? Okay, that's nice. And maybe I want to take a picture or just save a copy about this version of my code. So, well, in the traditional way, maybe you can do something like, let me a second. You can do something like this. Just copy your project, and I'm sorry, I'm not looking, or well, I'm not seeing the video or what I'm recording. So imagine for a second that you want to save this specific version, and maybe you just have to create another folder and maybe call like app copy, and the current date is 30 no, okay, I'm sorry, 30 November and 2024. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm from Latin America, and I used to put first the day and before and after the month, so sorry about that. And yeah, this is maybe useful depending on the scenario, and maybe one time before or after in your programming career, maybe you ask, hey, I need to save this particular section because I don't know if in the future I need to go back. So that is the main purpose of using Git, that allows, or maybe give us, um, a group of commands that allows to control, save, go back, maybe upload to the cloud and use remote repositories, but just a pretty bigger tool. And maybe I'm not going to dive in at all. It's just like, hey, we need Git to upload the code to a remote repository that allows you to see my code. So, well, you need to have Git already installed. Maybe this step is not necessary at all, because it's just for me that share the base code with you. So, well, the code base with you. So it's not necessary. Maybe if you are just practice and you don't need to save the code. But depending on the content, maybe you need or you're not. So maybe just just to give you a hint, is just Git. And maybe you are going to look for how to install Git in Windows, MacOS, any Linux distribution, and so on. Go on, or something like that. So, in my case, once we already have Git installed, let's execute the following commands, like git init. Git init creates automatically the .git folder, and as you can see, something changed inside Visual Studio Code because it's a programming tool that has a very nice compatibility with the Git tool. As you can see, we see now we see different colors. You see folders and files that has the green color, and that means, thanks to Git, that these files are untracked. So that means if we save a copy and we don't add these files, we are not saving this information. So the following step is add this information. But first of all, I want to create an additional file called .gitignore. Maybe you don't worry, if you are not interested to learn about Git or maybe make this configuration, feel free to skip to the next episode. This is not necessary or doesn't have a big impact about Express. So once we create gitignore, but it's pretty important, maybe if you don't need just right now know what Git is, or maybe configure the repository, is maybe important that maybe you get into and understand what does exist in this programming world, even when you are starting, because gives you maybe a spatial or a big perspective that what exists and what does not. So that's pretty nice. And yeah, I give you that hint. So what files I don't want to include to the remote, maybe to local and remote repository, but yeah, I'm going to give you a hint. It's pretty important avoid node modules, because as you can see, we have a lot of content. Maybe you see this tool just right there that tell us that we have almost 900 pending change, but we don't type at all. These changes are mostly come from the node modules. And the reason why we don't need node modules is because we already have package.json and package hyperlock.json that allows to us or maybe other developers to install the dependencies needed for the project without include the whole dependencies, because this weight a lot. Maybe I have not much dependencies, but depending on the project, this little folder easily can weight, I don't know, 1 gigabyte or more. So be careful with that. Avoid to include these node modules. And as you can see, it's almost 40 megabytes. That's a lot. Maybe if we see the total weight of our project, remember that node modules weight is almost 30 megabytes, and the total it's literally the same weight, because node modules is the folder that have more weight compared to the other ones. We don't have enough information than node modules. So yeah, including the other reason that I already give you, or I already told you about, we have package.json that allows to developers know what dependencies our project is using. So that's enough. So we're going to include node modules. We can use regex, expressions, and more. Maybe just with the name is enough. And I want you to notice something once I save these files, and we are going to see how node modules turns it's a color to, I don't know, gray or something like that. Wait a second, and as you can see, this changed, because that means thanks to Visual Studio Code and their implementation with the Git tool, give us a nice visual and programming experience. Pretty nice. So the other one is dist, because we can generate dist thanks to the source folder that is the code source itself. So it doesn't matter this, because we can generate this thanks to source, thanks to the build command. So that's enough. Also, well, as you can see, dist. And as you can see, this changed again, and this has the same color. And that means that node modules, well, neither node modules nor this will be included or won't be included to the control versioning or something like that. I don't care. So the following command is git add. Git add is just to include all the files that we are going to track, because remember, the other files are untracked. So we can add individually each of them. For example, if I want to include package.json, and as you can see, package.json change their letter but not their color. And as you can see, the new letter means index at. That means that, yeah, we are following this change. And as you can see, we have lower changes because we remove dist and node modules. And these changes give us a summary about what files are being followed by Git. In this case, just package.json. That means stage changes. That is come from the changes that will be pending the tool. And the other that means changes is just like on track. So maybe it's a pretty, if you're a lazy developer as us, all of us, you can use git add dot. Dot means that we are going to take all the folders and files recursively and add them to the stage phase, or just the phase that we are going to follow the changes. And that's useful because we already remove dist and node modules. So this command are going to look for .gitignore and ignore these files for us. So let's go ahead. And all the files that are not included in this list will be included on the staging area. I'm going to call it like a staging area. So it's very important, once you create a new file, add them to the staging area to track them. So, well, once we already did this, the following step is just save a copy. To save a copy, we are going to use the git commit. Commit allows to save a specific version or image, like take it like a picture. That I'm going to take a picture of this time, and that allows me to maybe give more control about the changes that I am performing on the code, and also in the future allows me to go back if maybe I have some doubts or if I need to recover something and more. Be careful, because you only can go back if you sometime add the file to the staging area. If you don't add the file to the staging area, for example, node modules, we never go back because this folder or file never was inside the staging area. So let's create a commit, and always, if you just execute the command, and as you can see, git must ask to give some comments, because this is pretty important. This is thanks to the use way that people once are creating something like, I don't know, final projects or final papers, need to save different version, and the first version calling, I don't know, my thesis version 1, and the following is my thesis version 2, but the following is my my thesis version 2 with styles, and the other one is version 3 with images and pre-information or something like that. Yeah, the name is not the best place to include that kind of information, and Git give us this specific space to include, or this specific area to include that information. Maybe I'm not familiar at all with this interface, so I'm going to leave this out. And as you can see, is waiting for editor to close the file, aborting commit due to the empty commit message. We have to send a commit with a commit message because that's the idea. Describe what you've done. In my case, once it's the first commit that you did or you are performing, you can include something like init because it's the first or one of the first, one of the first phases of the project. So it's something like that. Commit, and maybe you want, if you don't want to include a basic web server using Express with TypeScript already configured or something like that. Well, this message is pretty nice, and that's the idea. Be very descriptive because maybe 1 month ago, 3 months ago, 1 year ago, you need to go back, and if you don't be descriptive using the commit, and if you want, will not being descriptive with the commit, well, you don't know what you've done on the past. So in my case, I'm going to use commit, but this depends almost with the programmer's mood. If you are pretty lazy, you are going to include something like this works, or basic web server or something like that. But maybe give some effort to improve your commit messages. So once we are done, once we are already have the commit message, just please enter, type enter, and as you can see, we have some changes. The green color are no longer visible, and that's mean because we already saved the change and it's not necessary. That doesn't mean that we are unfollow this. No, don't worry. Once you add to the staging area, automatically in the future will be include again to the another version. It's not just like, hey, once I save this one time and save a commit, I have to add the files again with another git add dot. No, it's not necessary because the files are already included. And you can see that in this section, well, we don't have extra files, but yeah, we have the commit just right there. And Visual Studio Code gives us visual tools to see, okay, that's nice. We have the changes, what we add or what we remove. Maybe is the first commit, so we can see if we remove something because it's the first time we add the files. And all the green lines means some additions. Well, the package.hyphen.json is pretty long, so go and maybe we are going to see other file like in the docs.ts, and that's pretty nice. There's the visual information, the visual tools are very useful to know what happens with our code. And maybe if we perform some changes, you are going to notice something. So go to index, for example, I am going to remove the exclamation mark. And once I remove, well, there is no changes. But if I save the file, I want you notice that we see the maybe, I don't know, orange or yellow color, opaque or dark yellow. And that means, and as you can see, the file was modified, has been modified. And yeah, that means also the Git are following this file because we know right now that we are following that file. So the file suffer a modification. So what's the following? What have to do? Well, if you want to save another version, that's the deal. Well, you have to perform again git commit and give another message. But as you can see, meanwhile you are making changes, the editor are going to give you information about what are you changing. And if you go to this source control tool, you see we have one pending change, and we have this section that summarize what changes we done with the files that we are following. And if we go back, this is pretty nice. This is not the file itself, it's just a preview of the file changes. And as you can see, the seventh line is not longer hello world exclamation mark, it's just hello world. It's pretty easy to understand that the red one is removed and the green one is an addition. So yeah, that's nice. And maybe if you are done or you are ready to send a change to the commit or save a version, it's a pretty little change, just like a character, but just to academic or educational purpose, it's nice to show you that we have to execute again git commit -m and another change, like for example, root path response has been changed. One hint: if you add a new file, you have to use git add again, because a new file means a new file to follow, and Git are not going to take automatically that file because it's something that you have to add explicitly. And let's give you a example.txt. And as you can see, give me a second, the example turns the green color as the beginning when we include a git at the first time. And as you can see, this file is unfollow, or well, it's untracked. So that means we have to execute git add dot if you are lazy to type the file name, or you can type the file name to be more specific and include git add example.txt. If you are not if you don't want to add the file, is not necessary, you can follow with this file untracked, but be careful, because if you save your project in a remote repository and maybe, I don't know, you change your computer, and in the new computer you bring back or pull the remote repository, it's pretty obvious that you are not going to see this file, because never you include it in the control version. So yeah, that's interesting. You have to use git add with the new files. And maybe, so let's save another copy. We already have with commit, root path response has been changed. And okay, I'm sorry, I have to use git add again. Maybe something that I just forgot, but if you ask me, I used to each I'm going to save save another version, another version. I always use git add dot, and after that use git commit. So forget the last thing I said. Use git add dot, and maybe if you have another files and you want to ignore them, just add them to the git ignore file. So let's send the git commit again. As you can see, the index changed, is no longer a yellow color. And if we go to the source version, you see this just right there. We have like a, I don't know, a live paper or something like that, a live through about the project. And as you can see, we have the basic web server that will include a lot of info, but we have the last one. So depending of how many commits we are performing, we are going to see that commit right there. So as you can see, we have the main. The main means is the last change in the main branch, because also we can create different branches. And depending on the scenario, I'm going to use branches just to copy the code, are not longer updated, and continue with other branches and continue with the course. So once we already have this, well, in my case, I'm going to use GitHub is a pretty famous Git remote repository. So let me use github.com. I already logged in. This is my profile if you want to follow me. And in my case, I'm going to create, or I'm going to go this section. You have to create an account, of course. And in this section, you are going to create a new repository. And in this repository, you are going to create. So once in this section, we can use a template. Well, this is not necessary at all. And in my case, I'm going to use Express course. And sadly, I already have an Express course. So I'm going to give a temporal name. Well, I'm not sure. The reason behind this is because I have another version in Spanish. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. In my case, I'm going to use the version 2. I don't care. You can choose if you want to make it public or private. In my case, public, and the resource information is not for my interest. So once we are in this section, we have some info that we have to perform to send the repository. So let's perform this information like git init, git add, git commit. We already done these actions, but in this section we are going to follow git branch m main. So git branch m main, that means we are going to include the main branch, and also we are going to add a new origin. The origin is just a source, like could be one repository or a remote repository. If you want to use other tool than GitHub, I don't know, like Bitbucket, or I don't remember the other ones, you feel free to use. It is not 100% necessary use GitHub. You can you can use Git with other providers. In my case, I'm using GitHub, and as origin, I have to add this information just right there. So we are going to add origin, or use a source, a remote source, where we are going to add or follow this remote repository. And just because the repository is empty, that means we can push our code, and that will be the first version, inside quotation mark, of the remote repository lifetime. So we are going to execute git push. Git push means that we are going to send the changes to a remote repository. And as you can see, if we reload the page, we have all the changes right there. So in my case, I just have to share with you guys this URL, and that's it. You can see the course code. Maybe in the future, I have been creating different branches that allows me, for example, I don't know, if we are going to cover routing, I'm going to create one hyphen routing. So that means that's the following section, and in that section you are going to see the routing code. And maybe after routing, we are going to talk about controllers. So I'm going to add a new branch called 2 hyphen controllers. So you know what you have to see depending on the section of the course you currently are. So I'm going to close this. It's not necessary at all. And maybe just if you are pretty or if you see the visual changes, we have just right there that we also have or push this information to the origin main. Origin main is pretty important because that gives us information about the remote, the remote source where this branch is, and also what this code base is, and also with branch of this code base is upload to the remote repository. In this case, we upload this commit to the origin. The origin is the name. We can change origin with GitHub or remote repository 1, remote repository 2, project 1. That can change. So don't get familiar with origin main, because you can change that information. And on the other hand, we had main, so that means we push this change to the main branch. Maybe also you can use this other section just right there, visualize commits on the commit graph. And the commit graph is pretty nice, pretty useful, because yeah, it's just to improve the visual experience. And you have just right there that you push this to the origin to the main, talking about remote. Also, you can see the branches, you can see the origins, or well, the remotes. And sorry, yeah, as you can see, we have the origin, and in the origin, we only push the main, and the main has the following. So that's pretty nice, because it allows to maybe make easier this experience, because at the beginning it could be a big change, big challenge. So that's it. I hope this video was helpful. And in the description section, we are going to find the remote repository that allows you to, in any moment, get the core source code that you need. And I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next time. Bye bye.